All right, we're gonna get started with a little bit of runner's yoga. And before we get moving, I wanna make sure that you have props if you do need them to help you in your stretch. Ava is going to be my running/yogi today, so she will demo all the poses. So I have 2 brick that will bring the earth higher if you need them. You can use books, you can use anything that resembles the shape. Sometimes a towel works out nice if your knee is rubbing, if you're on hardwood floors. A strap to grab your foot. If you are super tight, all of the seated poses we do today can be done on a blanket. And what that'll do is to help you open up your hips so you're not in a crunchy spot like this, but rather an open one. So we'll get started with Ava in child's pose. She's going to widen out her knees to the edges of the mat. She's going to let her big toes touch, and she's going to press back. Really nice as a hip opener post run once you've had your cool down and you're ready to start to stretch. A nice way to intensify the stretch and to start to open up the side bodies is to have you walk your hands over to the right side of your mat. That's going to open up the left strip and just press back in space here. And then take your hands, walk across the top edge of the mat and head on over to the other side. And then you're pressing the top of the right hip back and of course getting a little bit more depth into that right side body. Beautiful. Really important to keep the side bodies open as a runner. We're always in the same pattern running, so anytime you can add some lateral movement, that's great. From here, we're going to lift up the hips to tabletop pose. She's going to do a couple rounds of cat and cow just to kind of undulate the spine, give the vertebrae a little bit of movement. So you always inhale when the collarbones are lifted, and when belly button pulls into the spine, it's done on an exhale. Don't worry about it if you don't get it exactly right. Really nice way just to uncrunch the spine, so to speak. Beautiful. She'll do one more of those. And we're going to move into toe breaker. So she's going to curl all her 10 toes under, and she's going to have a seat right on her heels and lift up. So as the name suggests, this is quite difficult on your toes. If you have foot issues, obviously modify. If this is too intense, you can put your hands out ahead. You can put one of the bricks underneath the knees to lift up a little bit, and that'll help take the edge off. And she'll demo that. But you want the heel over the ball mount, and it literally feels like you are breaking your toe. So if this is new to you, don't hold it for so long. Build up. Like most things, you can build up, and the body will get used to stretching the feet in this way. Nice and easy. She's going to move that brick off, come to tabletop pose, and tap the tops of her feet just as a really nice release here. Beautiful. From here, we're going to go to downward facing dog. Palms are super wide. As runners, you'll know that the back body is really tight. Best thing to do is a slight bend in the knees. But downward dog is going to stretch all of the fascia in the back body. So really taking the time to set yourself up. Ideally, you want a nice straight spine. Let your head hang. Let that bowling ball rest. Nice straight spine and bent knees. She's going to pedal out just to give a little bit of movement in the body. It feels really nice after a run just to get your head below the heart. Obviously, you want to be cooled down when you're doing this. Anytime you're taking the head below the heart, just give it a second after you stop running. Nice pedal. This gets the feet that we just stretched. It starts to move up the calves and through the back body as well. Nice. And then hold it still. Walk your hands to meet your feet so you're in a forward fold at the back of the mat. And then we're just going to take a halfway lift as you inhale. And then fold it back down as you exhale. And do that a couple of times. But do that with a straight spine, right? We don't want to be rounded. What we're still trying to focus on is the stretch back there. And you can take bricks if it's too intense. You can set them down and do that same action with the blocks if you have that. Again, you can use a book or a box or whatever. Beautiful. And then hold the fold. Let your head hang. Shake it out. Nice. All right, we're gonna walk back to downward facing dog. And then she's gonna put her right foot between her hands and just get really long and stretchy. So what I mean by that is she's gonna take her collarbones as forward, nice, as she can, which is really gonna start to get into the hips a little bit more. Nice, and then drop your back knee, the left knee down, and come on up to a lunge. So both hands onto your right thigh to start. Beautiful. And then as you exhale, take your left hand to grab your left foot behind you. Beautiful. So obviously we're getting into quad on the left side a little bit more. The closer you get your heel to the butt, the more significant that stretch is going to be. So this is the first stage. Next stage of this pose, she's going to let the foot go. The left hand is going to come down onto the mat. And the right hand is now going to reach for this foot. So it's going to get progressively more challenging. Wherever you can work it is where you should stay. Heel to butt, nice. Next stage, next krama, as the yogis would call it, the forearm comes down and she's going to curl her chest open towards the right thigh and let that right thigh start to externally rotate. So we're starting to check more and more anatomy as we progressively get deeper into this pose. Nice. And then as you exhale, take your right hand, put it outside of your right foot. We're going to come to half splits. So she's going to keep her left hip parked over her left knee. Extend that right leg out long. Most important thing here is to keep a straight spine. Don't worry how close you get to that right thigh. It's much better to have the stretch back here than to round and have your nose closer to the shin. That's really not doing anything for you. Beautiful. So even if you could totally straighten this right leg, don't. We never want to lock a joint out. We always want a little bit of play. Beautiful. Take your right knee, put it back over that ankle, step forward so your left foot comes over the right at the top of your mat. So we're in that IT band stretch, left foot over the right. Beautiful. And let your head hang. And again, you can use bricks if touching the ground or even getting close to that isn't possible with your body shape. Don't worry about it. Now, as you can see here, Ava's left knee is bent, the left foot is over, and the 10 toes are as lined up as they can. Most people end up sitting far back. You have to sit forward. You have to park the hip over the knee, over the ankle to get that sensation. Do you feel that? Okay. And this is your IT band, when we're really trying to stretch the top of that. Beautiful. And then as you exhale, unwind, left foot comes out over there. And then just take a regular fold and just do a rag doll. Grab your elbows and hang. Let your lower jaw relax. Let your face relax. Beautiful. And then take another halfway lift. Walk your feet to the edges of the mat. Turn your heels in and toes out. And then put your hands onto your thigh. Yeah. And we're going to do right shoulder into the center or left shoulder into center. And just start to stretch out the back body. Nice. And then either stay here or you start to come down to what we call yogic squat. So externally rotate the toes. So what we want with this pose, as Ava has, her heels are grounded, spine is lifting, and you want to open up the knees with the help of the upper arms. So you press out. Beautiful. Such a great pose to release the lower back if you've been putting in a lot of miles. Obviously, it's great for the hips, great for the Achilles tendon, great for your feet. If your heels don't touch the mat, Ava's does, but you can, Ava's do touch. You can put a brick underneath the heels. You just don't want to have them hanging in space. Nice. And then take a forward fold after that. It always feels good to forward fold after that. Beautiful. And parallel out your feet. Nice. And then we'll take just another halfway lift as you inhale. So hands to the thighs. Nice straight spine with heart dropping. And then we'll take it all the way back to a downward facing dog. So you can do the left side of what we just did. We're going to move on to pigeon. We're going to take the right knee to your right wrist and set up for pigeon. And then, right, get down. You can stay up with forearms. You can lay flat down. Ava's got a really nice pigeon going because the back of her pelvis is level. You don't want to dump way onto the hip side that we're trying to stretch. What we're looking for is that nice level back of the pelvis to really stretch the piriformis. So we're looking for a stretch in that right butt. If your butt's floating way up high, you can take a towel, you can put a brick under there as support. There's plenty of ways to take it. All right, so obviously holding these poses longer than I'm showing them today, you can control how long you hold. So we're going to have Ava lift up, and then she's going to now drop onto that hip. So if you did have something under there, obviously slide it out. And she's going to take her left leg up and over her right leg and put her foot outside. So she's going to put this foot onto the mat. Right. So shoulders are going to be relaxed, and she's got a straight lifted spine. As I started with, you can sit on a blanket if that's easier for you. And then she's going to take her right arm up, like she's asking a question. And then she's going to put her right elbow outside of that thigh and spin. So this is another pose for the outer hips, right? And the shoulders are relaxed. The foot is grounded. The more you press down in the left foot, the more rebound that you're going to get from the stretch. Over. And so you want the two knees to stack one over the other. Ava, why don't you turn towards the camera just so they can appreciate your alignment here. So ideally, one knee would be stacked over, and is this not tight in your outer hips? It kills the outer hips. You need to be ready for this one. So as I mentioned earlier, have a blanket. If you want to put that blanket underneath, that will definitely take the edge off. But a nice long spine, don't round forward. You can lean forward for a more intense stretch, but don't round. You want to hinge. That's what will make the stretch the best. And you have to hold this stuff. If you move in and out of it way too fast, it really doesn't change the muscle. Beautiful. And then nice and easy, she's just going to unwind. And you can spin back that direction. And then just put your feet at the edges of the mat, and we're just going to windshield wiper back and forth. Nice. Beautiful. All right, so both knees are going to be up, and then she's going to roll onto her back and just bring her knees in towards the belly. And just give them a hug. And then I always take time to circle my ankles and kind of play with the toes a little bit. Really important when you have the opportunity, when you don't have shoes on, to really get some fluid movement and natural movement in the feet and the toes. And then we're going to hold on, and we're going to do this because we have furniture in the way. We're going to have her straighten out her right leg long onto the mat and let the heel come down, and you keep holding that left knee in. Gorgeous. Holding the left knee in helps to stretch out your lower back. So if your back is super tight, this is a really easy way when you're done with your run to stretch that out. Now we're going to take that left knee and bring it across the midline of the body and stretch it out. Now the key is when you do a twist like this, and we're going to take the left leg long, nice, is to keep both shoulder heads down. You want that really open chest, and I always recommend people goal post their arm. Again, we have the chance to open up your lungs and breathe big. Take advantage of it. We're stretching the outer hip. How does that feel?
Sore.
Nice. And then bend that knee, bring it back to center. And then bring your right knee up and in. Great. We're not going to do the other side. You can do the other side on your own. We're going to come into one of our last shapes. We're going to put the left foot onto the mat. And we're going to come into a figure, or the right foot, excuse me, and come into figure four. So this is basically the same thing as pigeon facing down. So If you're out for a run outside somewhere and before you want to get into your car, obviously you don't want to lay flat on the road, or you can always do this one. You can do figure four standing, a million ways to really take time to stretch the piriformis. But we're going to work this into a couple of different stretches that I want to show you, and then we'll wrap it up. What we're going to do first is have Ava put her foot back down, the right foot, and we're going to keep the figure four. And then what we're going to do is drop both of the knees off to the left side. So she's going to wiggle her foot over a little just for room, and then both knees are going to drop. So right now she is in a pinwheel shape where her left ankle is hanging out on the front of her outer right thigh. What this does is take that strip of skin that we're constantly pulling that leg up, the hip flexor, and really get a nice stretch. So I showed you a towel earlier. If you need to pad something that doesn't feel quite right, grab a towel, stuff a little padding under, it'll make it much more comfortable. But this is so smart for this whole side of the body, and obviously left hip gets a hip opener as well. Beautiful. Keep the shape and come back to that figure four with the right foot onto the mat. So the next one is checking a different box. We're going to take the right hand, hold the left ankle, and then we're going to roll onto that right hip. So your right or knee is facing up, your left knee is facing up and your right knee is facing out to the side. So this really stretches the left outer hip. If you're doing this and you don't get much of a stretch, you need to bring this thigh closer to the top edge of the mat and take that foot with you. Also, if this knee is collapsing in, you're also not going to get much of a stretch. That knee needs to open a little bit towards. Do you feel that? So all really little pocketed areas within the hip, that's going to give it a much better stretch. Nice. And then we're going to unwind, bring the feet back to the edges of the mat, and we're going to do that windshield wipering here again. Always try to get a lot of range of motion in your hips when that's available. Beautiful. All right. And then we're going to have you roll up. Last pose is just going to be a seated forward fold. So we did a couple of these standing. Your legs are going to be straight out ahead. And then you're going to sit up really straight. And again, if you need to sit on a blanket to lift up your hips to make this accessible, do it. Shoulders are relaxed. And as she exhales, she's just going to lean forward. And you can reach for your toes. I'm going to grab this strap. So if you're super tight, you can use one of these straps. But one of the things Ava does is round her back, takes away the stretch. Keep the collarbone stretching, and then hinge from there. Who cares if your nose touches your shins? Nothing really changes. What we're looking for is a really smart stretch in your back body. That's where you guys need it, and that's where it's super important. So don't get caught up in getting your face really close. Do you feel that in the back? Yeah. Again, micro bend those knees. Don't lock them out, and she's got her toes beautifully pulling up towards her kneecaps, and that's what you need. You might as well get a shin and calf stretch here, right? And then let go of that. And then we're just going to come into butterfly pose, bottoms of the feet together. You can always put bricks on either side, but same principle applies. It's a spine that's lifted, and then you can hinge forward if it's there for you. What we want is inner groins. We've already stretched the back, so rounding and trying to get in small will only stretch that area and take away from what you really need, which in this pose, our goal is inner groins. And don't bounce. Just nice, easy, lean into it, a couple of breaths. Let your body relax into it, and you'll find, as Ava's finding, the more she holds it, the deeper and deeper your body will allow you to go. But if you really force it on the front end, it just becomes awkward and uncomfortable. Beautiful. And then nice and easy, come to seated. Just a regular seated cross-legged pose, either shin in front. And just a couple of cat and cow here. Heart forward and back. and forward and back. So we demoed one side for most of these. Obviously, you're going to want to play the other side and do that sequence repeated. Nice work, Ava. Namaste.